Hello and welcome to the live session of the Responsive4U e-Symposium, Reimagining Higher Education. We're live in Hong Kong, and the live event is broadcasted on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Please send in your comments and questions on Facebook at HKU@eLearning, Twitter at HKUniversity, and LinkedIn at Suri. You can also type your questions on the Responsive4U e-Symposium website. We look forward to have a discussion with you all.
The Responsive4U initiative is a cross-institutional general education course sharing project which connects 4 local universities to share selected general education courses. This content sharing project presents precious opportunities for students to select courses that are not available at their home institutions and to meet new friends from other partner universities. Students from these 4 institutions are free to take selected general education courses in the other partner universities, and the earned course credits will be transferred back to their home institutions. There are 11 cross-institutional general education courses available in this project, and they're delivered in blended learning mode.
Welcome to the live session of the Responsive4U e-Symposium, Reimagining Higher Education. We're live in Hong Kong, and the event is broadcasted on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Please send in your comments and questions on Facebook, and you can also type your questions on Responsive4U e-Symposium website. We look forward to a discussion with you all. Good morning from Hong Kong. My name is Andrea Chi. I'm an instructional designer at Technology Enriched Learning Initiative at the University of Hong Kong, and I'm your host for today's live event. I've been a member of the Responsive4U project for the past 3 years, and it is my greatest pleasure to share this project with all of you from all around the world. Today on this live stream, we are joined by university leaders, academics, teachers, and students from Hong Kong and all over the world. We have an exciting lineup of speakers, and we look forward to having a conversation with all of you about innovative teaching and learning. First of all, I'd like to introduce our honorable guest this morning. Please join me and welcome Professor James Tang, the Secretary General of University Grants Committee of Hong Kong. Welcome, Professor Tang.
Thank you.
Also, please welcome Professor Holiday, Vice President and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Teaching and Learning at the University of Hong Kong. Welcome, Professor Holiday.
Thanks a lot, Andrea.
We'll hear more from Professor Tang and Professor Holiday at the later parts of today's session. Thank you both for joining us. It's our greatest honor to have you. Responsive4U is a project initiated jointly by 4 universities in Hong Kong and supported by the University Grants Committee. As you have seen from the introduction video, this project opens up opportunities for universities to share content, exchange students, and form a community of practice on teaching innovation. One highlight of the project is that all of the courses are delivered in blended format with online and face-to-face learning components. Under the impact of COVID-19, these experiences are of great value to higher education community around the world. So we hope our sharing could be helpful to you and your institutions. To disseminate these project findings and share our experiences, we have curated this online e-symposium. Many of our audiences are watching this live stream on our website right now. And if you're watching from other channels, please check it out at responsive4u.org/e-symposium. We have a full programs with presentations, interviews, and discussions with students, teachers, administrators, and program directors. And we also feature an online virtual poster gallery with all 11 courses with their designs. So please check it out at responsive4u.org/e-symposium. As our audience are tuning in, please say hi to us on the comment box, and we would love to hear from your comments and questions. Now, to get our conversation started, I would like to invite our first speaker, Professor Ricky CUHK, the Responsive for You project leader from the University of Hong Kong. Welcome, and thank you, Ricky, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for almost single-handedly organizing this very nice finale event for the project.
Thank you, and congratulations on the successful completion of the project. So first of all, I'm sure our audience have a lot of questions for you, but I will start by a few questions about the project. Looking back at the end point, I was wondering, what is your objective when we started the project? What was the project trying to achieve?
Okay, this is a good question. In a project proposal to UGC, of course, we put in a lot of high-sounding, very formal writing project objectives. But actually, behind this list of objectives, we have three main objectives, actually. Number one is we want to further promote blended learning enriched by technologies. Number two, we want to stress test genuine collaborations among 4 institutions. And finally, number three is that we want to push the envelope in systemic arrangement of courses, such as timetabling and other arrangement of a course in a university, and also classroom activities, what we can do in a classroom. And basically what we want to do is what we want to see how we can legitimately shock the system. So these are our real objectives behind the scene. Thank you.
Well, these are really ambitious goals, and as we can see from the project results, we have somewhat achieved them. So congratulations again. And I think a lot of our audience tuning in today may not be familiar with the project previously. So if we could go to the basics, what does responsive for you mean? What does this, how is the project responsive as universities?
You know what, I have been waiting for this question for 3 years. First of all, I must confess that it wasn't me who came up with this notion of responsiveness. It was an ex-colleague who brought up this brilliant idea. But based on my understanding of her personality, I believe she wouldn't want me to name her here. So let's just focus on the meaning of responsiveness that we use in the project. We actually use the word responsive in contemporary computing sense. I'm sure you all have heard of responsive website design, which means that nowadays we need to build our websites in an agile way such that contents are delivered and presented in an appropriate manner, subject to the possibility of very different capabilities of users' device. Like, okay, your website have to be able to deliver to a smartphone or a tablet of various sizes. So we mean the same thing here in our project. We strongly believe that we should also strive our best as top-notch universities to get across our content to students in the most appropriate ways, given that we have highly relevant technologies at our disposal now. Like for instance, in our blended learning courses, we do not do any didactic lecturing anymore because there's no need to do that. Right? Those lecture materials should be based on pre-recorded videos so that students can conduct their learning anytime, anywhere. And the freed up classroom time can then be used for active learning tasks. So I think this is the sense of responsiveness that we are trying to define and promote, and hopefully will be carried on by the institutions from now on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for explaining this in such in-depth manner. And I certainly believe that I'm sure our students, our teachers really welcome this responsive way of teaching and learning. And I also believe that your ambition in being responsive doesn't stop just at this project. So if we could talk a little beyond the scope of the project, what is the most responsive way of education that you can imagine?
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to mention some more crazy ideas here. Based on our experience in this project, definitely conventional ways of organizing our teaching are seriously challenged by what we have done. So a key word I like to use here is decoupling. First of all, we need to continue the decoupling of content from time and space. We need to provide more flexibility. Right? Specifically, I don't see why we cannot do more blended learning with simple technologies. Like I said earlier, we can do away with the didactic lectures. We can use the classroom for technology-enriched activities. We can use a lot of AI techniques online to help students. So these are things that are already at our disposal. So these are things that I hope we can carry on and across the board, different courses, not just the courses that we have used in this project, to decouple content from time and space. More interestingly, based on my own experience, I'm handling 2 courses in this project, by the way. I think we can do more compressed mode of teaching, in that a course can actually be finished within 3 to 4 weeks in a semester. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to compress the semester. So semester can still be like 13 weeks to 15 weeks. But with all the didactic lecture videos available to students, and my own experience is that students, a lot of them like to binge watch the videos. And so we can actually do the face-to-face classroom activities in a boot camp-like manner, so that all those activities, learning tasks can be finished within 3 to 4 weeks. And the semester's free up time can be used for other meaningful educational activities like short-term exchange, intensive experiential learning or service learning. You don't need to wait until the winter break or summer break to do these things. Right? So this is the number 1 crazy idea. Number 2, and it's the second one only, the final one. We can actually decouple contents from course boundaries as well. I anticipate that with more and more online contents developed, we will have a large collection of online contents across different courses, but by definition, these contents are connected in the curriculum. So you can envision that we will have a knowledge graph available to students. And so why don't we let students navigate this knowledge graph by themselves? And of course, based on our experience in the collaboration in this project among 4 institutions, I strongly believe that sooner or later, this knowledge graph can also transcend departmental and even institutional boundaries. So these are the 2 crazy decoupling ideas that I want to voice out here, right? Given your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricky. These are really interesting ideas, decoupling and compressed mode of teaching and learning. And if I can just quickly follow up on that, how did students respond to this kind of mode of teaching in your experience?
You know, Andrea, you are also one of the co-teacher of one of the courses, and you have first-hand experience here, but thank you for allowing me to elaborate on this. Students love it. Students, they in our interviews with focus group, students, they mentioned explicitly that why I chose Ricky and Andrea's course, because the course will be done by October. So I can do other things in November, and I can focus on examinations for the more important discipline courses or other things. So students actually believe that this should be promoted widely, if possible, in the future. Right? And I strongly believe that this will happen in the foreseeable future. And to answer your question, students love it because they can also concentrate on the learning of this particular course during that 3 to 4 weeks, right? So that they can get the most out of the content instead of dragging to 15 weeks or 14 weeks to the end of the semester and they have to recall a lot of things in September. So I don't see a strong reason why we have to still drag a course for a 15-week or 14-week semester. And to me, this is not student-oriented teaching. This is system-oriented teaching. It facilitates the teacher. It doesn't actually facilitate the students at all, in my opinion. I may be biased. Right? So to answer your question again, students love it based on my own experience. And we have some research data as well. I will report this in the final report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ricky, for sharing these first-hand experiences, both as the project leader and also as a teacher from two of the courses. So I see our audience are also tuning in and sending in questions. Perhaps we can address one of the questions here, and then Ricky will stay with us for the next panel discussion. So if audience has more questions for Ricky, feel free to send them in as we move along with the project, with the program. So the first question is from Minnie Wong on Facebook. Hello, Minnie. And judging from the profile, I'm sure Winnie is an alumni of Hong Kong U. So Winnie asks, Hong Kong U has developed great MOOCs, and can they be credited and offered as sharing courses in exchange programs like this one?
Yeah, thank you, Minnie, for the great question. And I also thank you for paying attention to our MOOCs development in the recent years. I have to say that I'm not actually coordinating this anymore. So I think maybe Professor Holliday can elaborate more about this particular policy question. But I can speak from my own interpretation of the situation. Yeah, I think the MOOCs can certainly be used as exchange, kind of sharing courses in some exchange programs. And in fact, some of our courses in the project are also based on the MOOC version. So I think from a technical perspective, I don't see why we cannot do this. But I have to also mention a catch. The catch is that in a MOOC, all of the assessment tasks are done online. And in the University of Hong Kong, as far as I can tell, we don't want to just focus on online assessments for all of our courses. So we still want to keep some of the face-to-face components. So therefore, if we use a MOOC for an exchange program like what you mentioned here in your question, we will need to add some face-to-face components as well. So again, I think this is entirely doable as proven by our project, but I will leave this question also to Professor Holliday to address a little bit of the looking into the future, because he is in charge of all of this in the University of Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. And I think we have time for just one more question from Facebook. Here is from Cindy Leung. This question is also related to the shortened mode, the compressed mode of teaching and learning. Thank you for the sharing. Does it mean that students will have a more flexible schedule for study? They can arrange their learning at their own paces on online learning platforms instead of following the traditional schedule, like having 8 sessions or 8 weeks? What is your take on this?
Okay, thank you so much, Cindy, for your question. Speaking from our own experiences in the project or my particular experience in the courses that I taught, for many courses in many curriculum, I believe, we can certainly do this kind of compressed mode learning or teaching in a university, in the sense that we can provide all the lectures available at the beginning of the semester. And as I said earlier, some students really like to binge watch all of them and complete all the online assessments at their own pace. And we just need to grab the students or draw them into the classroom for some face-to-face tutorial or learning tasks or midterm tests and whatever you want to use as an assessment tool. So to answer your question, if we do this across the board in a particular curriculum, for example, 3 to 4 courses are doing this compressed mode, then of course, students can have a lot of flexibility in arranging their learning time. And this is actually my dream. I don't know what other things like our partners in other universities. This is certainly a very crazy idea, but I just don't see why we cannot try this more in the sense that we want to facilitate students learning more. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy and Minnie, for the questions, and thank you for Ricky for the responses and kicking our conversation start with these crazy ideas. So it's great that Ricky will stay with us for the next panel discussion. So I would like now to invite our other 2 panel members to join us on the live session. So we're very happy to have Professor Chetwin Chang, Associate Vice President of Learning and Teaching from the Hong Kong Polytech University, and Professor Roger Chang, Associate Provost of Teaching and Learning from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Welcome, Chetwin and Roger, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you.
It's actually great to see all of you together again. It's been a while since the project team got together like this. It's been really excellent to have worked with you on this project for the past 3 years and look at all of the incredible achievements we have made connecting the 4 institutions in a very meaningful way. So here I'm asking a question from my personal interest and also I think to some of the interest of our audience as well. How did this project team come together? This very effective, very efficient project team. How did this collaboration start in the beginning? So perhaps we can invite Chetwin or Roger to start first to share your experience.
Of course, thanks. For me, I think it's very easy. On a day, I received a call from Ricky, and then Ricky said there is a very good project. So what is that project about? Then Ricky explained, and then I just responded saying, yes, of course. It's a very great idea. It tackles a quite prominent problems of higher education in Hong Kong, particularly under the University Grounds Committee. So it's collaboration across different universities, and that would ultimately benefit our students. So of course, saying yes, and then I joined the team, and then we just embark on these 2-3 years of project.
Okay, yeah, I guess my actually experience also similar with Chetwin. I don't recall exactly whether it was an email or a phone call or whatever, but then it was actually, coming to me, get to be that, Ricky with Hong Kong U is actually leading this project. Once I learned about the objectives to go, and I think that's actually identified with, what Ricky has said, earlier and also in the proposal. And also there's a little bit, self-agenda underneath because HKUST is one of the smallest university compared to the other 3. So I think in terms of course offering, we are more limited. So by joining such a program, that will open up opportunity for our students to take courses, from other university and reaching the selection. And that's actually very good for our students. And that's one of the reasons. Not to mention that because Rick is leading that, and then I have confidence in him, and I know that it will be a good project.
Thank you so much. We have certainly seen some great accomplishment achieved under the leadership of this very strong team. So as Roger also mentioned, when you decided to join this project, you had considerations about the situation of your own institution. So I have a question for each one of you. To start something brand new as an experimental project, I'm sure you all had different questions or even concerns. So what were you most curious to find out through this experimental project?
Okay, maybe I'll start this time. Okay, so I think there are several things. One thing I think ultimately, project like this, we want students to benefit from, right? So one thing I am very curious about is how will students react to this idea? The fact that they may have to actually travel from one university to another university, okay, and also in a different environment and all that, and then we would like to know how students see it. There's probably a lot of things that we can learn from how they actually see it, okay, instead of from our professor and also administrators kind of like angle of seeing the whole thing. So this is something I'm very curious about. And I guess similar to what one of the objectives that Ricky has mentioned, I will also be very curious to see how different institutions, staffs can actually work together, collaborate together in such a very difficult situation where we have different schedule of the semester, everything logistically is very challenging and all that, and how we actually solve this kind of problem, whether we can actually pull it through and make it really happen. Okay, so I think these are two of the things I really want to learn about in this project.
For me, I share the same concerns and also queries about what Roger just mentioned. But another component or another thing that I'm also wanting to look at is how our teachers respond to it. The reason is when we have incoming students from other institutions, how are we going to accommodate their schedule? How are we going to enable them to have better integration with the home institution students? So I approach teachers and just to see how well that they receive these ideas, and actually I receive very good outcome. That teachers actually are very willing to make accommodation, to set up additional session, and also to accommodate the teaching material. For instance, for the course which we offered in the past 2 years, actually it turned into online materials, and also cut down the tutorial times. Instead of 6-7 times, we cut it down to 3 times, so as to accommodate the schedule of the students. Of course, students might have different responses, saying that, well, you cut down tutorial time, may not be adequate, but other students actually love it and saying it facilitates them to attending the face-to-face session. So I would think also the acceptance of teachers and the willingness for them to participate also a very important point that we need to tackle.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Yes, Ricky, please.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to take a little time here to acknowledge great contributions from another partner of the team, Professor Isabella Poon, who is the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Vice President Education in Chinese University of Hong Kong. Unfortunately, she is fully occupied today, so she cannot join us, but she has put in a lot of efforts in this project. So to answer Andrea's question, my curiosity is mainly about students' reaction as well, but in a different way. For various reasons, in this project, we can only give a pass-fail grade to visiting students. Like, for example, some students take my course in Hong Kong U from POLYU, for example. He or she at the end will only get a pass or fail. So this is a very, very curious part of the project, because there has always been a saying from different people that in a general education course, we should just give pass-fail to students because that will encourage them to really move out of the comfort zone and try different areas, instead of giving them a letter grade counted towards their GPA, so that they will be more conservative and trying to do general education courses from their own discipline. Like engineering students will do an engineering general education course and so on. So we are curious whether this is really the case, at least in our own sample. And my short answer to this question is no. Students, even though they just get a pass-fail, they fully enjoy the course. They put in a lot of efforts. I'm so impressed by visiting students from POLYU, Hong Kong UST, and CUHK. As Roger mentioned, they need to travel a long distance, by the way, by Hong Kong standard, to Hong Kong U to take the course, to join the classroom activities, tutorial, and all that. But I don't see any of them actually trying to just, pass the time and get a pass-fail at the end. So this is very encouraging to me, and this is my curiosity for the project. Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you very much to all 3 of panelists. And my next question is actually related to this curiosity in the beginning. So now when we complete the project and look at the results and the feedback, what are you most satisfied with the project outcome?
I'll go first.
Sure, please, Chelin.
The most satisfying, I would think, is actually students are very enthusiastic about joining the courses offered by other universities. This is very gratifying, particularly we know Hong Kong is a very small place, and all along our higher education approach is very much institutional based. So both teachers and students, they're very much thinking about all activities occur within the university. Of course, in the recent years, like 10 years or so, they reach out to the community, they reach out to overseas, but I think it's quite uncommon for things happening across institutions. So when we open this opportunity up, whether students would treasure this opportunity and go outside of the institution and go to another institutions and experiencing the culture and also interacting with other university students. I think this is very gratifying seeing, I think 70 students total, PolyU students attending other universities courses. And I would think because it's only the first wave, I'm sure if this is going to continue, there will be more and more students who are willing to go out and interacting with other university students, and that would provide a lot of good learning experiences for them.
Yeah, let me also add to what Chadwin said and also offer another point. I also, see that the students are enthusiastic. In fact, every semester we have, 10 to 20 students, taking courses from other university. In particularly, we see that students really take courses that they found they're interested in, and then, as Ricky said, they put in a lot of effort and also, overcome all the hurdles of traveling and all that. And that's something that I'm very happy to see, because, we can basically sometimes has a distorted image saying that students trying to game the system and all that. But in fact, we see quite a lot of students really, driven by curiosity, their interest, okay, and overcome difficulties, to basically trying to, learn more. I think this is very happy to see that. And I think it's a bit unfortunate that due to the visa restriction, student visa restriction, that non-local students cannot participate in this program up to now. But otherwise, I think we'll see even more students, join them. But on top of this, another things that I am very happy to see is that through this project, we see our staff, admin staff, working together very well, overcoming a lot of difficulties, and in terms of like the ad job period, scheduling, logistic issue, and I think collectively they work very well, to actually put this through. It was really amazing, and really that's something that I'm very happy to see.
Okay, Andrea, if you allow me to be a little bit greedier in this question, I want to mention 2 points in terms of most satisfying outcomes. First of all, the most satisfying outcome is the genuine collaborations among 4 institutions are actually possible. I think many of us would laugh, right? Because based on my experience and observations over the past 20-25 years in the university, usually when we have a cross-institutional project, what we would do is at the beginning, we cut it up into chunks, and then we take our portion back, and then we do our stuff, and at the end, when we need to turn in a report, we stick them together. So that's collaboration in the usual way. But here, it's not the case here. We actually work very closely together, not just the several partners, the general education directors, and also the administrators. I have to also take this opportunity to thank all the administrators from 4 institutions to do all the extra work to facilitate the enrollment, the transcript issuance, and answer a lot of questions from students that are extra work to them. So this is the first point. Second point is, maybe this is anecdotal experience only, but in my focus group interviews with students, many of them mentioned that, Ricky, thank you so much for having this project, because you know what, my GPA is not high enough to get an exchange abroad. And this is the only way I can have a taste of other campuses. Like, for example, the University of Hong Kong is a little bit more international, so I want to have a taste of that. So this is actually a very, very satisfying outcome as well for the project. Thank you so much, Andrea, for the question.
Thank you so much, Ricky, Chairman, and Roger for this sharing. And in fact, I think our audience can also feel this genuine collaboration, even across the screen, looking at our three partners, really sharing this successful experience. And as we move on with the program, we also are receiving a lot of greetings and wonderful questions from our live sessions. And we just saw a few comments on the screen that we've received hello from US, and also we have students, alumni from Hong Kong U and possibly from other universities as well. So thank you so much. And please continue to send in your questions and comments. So we received a few questions regarding the details of the project. So I think maybe we can quickly address these. And if the panel could briefly explain the rationale behind it and also the implication of these details. So we have one viewer asking, it is a great program and like to join more. How many courses can students take? Can one student study in all 4 universities? That would be a really wonderful idea. So, and also we have Catherine asking, this is truly fantastic. Will students be able to join in live courses somehow so that they can interact with students from the actual classroom? So perhaps we can address briefly on the detailed implementation of the project. And maybe we can invite Ricky to start first.
Okay, so a very quick answer to the first question. Due to a lot of logistic reasons and regulations or red tapes that we have to surmount in this project, we can only allow each visiting student to take one course from a host institution. So this is not really a technical problem in terms of the offering of the courses, but it's just a regulatory kind of issue. So this is the quick answer to the first question. And for the second question, my answer to that is, again, it's possible for other students or other, even alumni to join in some of the online activities, right? So that they can also participate in the activities. I don't see why we cannot do that. But in the project, we only have registered students in the classroom or in the online areas.
Maybe I can also supplement a little bit in the second question. I think with what happened in the last couple months, okay, when we have to take everything online, to like Zoom and all that or other platform, then I think it also opened up another opportunities, right? So it's not just the self-paced online modules on the platform that students can go study and then watch on their own, but also all the interactive sections that are in blended learning that inside the physical classroom. We can also have something that is actually via video conferencing like kind of platform, or maybe even a mixed mode kind of like environment. Okay, like this Catherine was actually asking. So I think there's basically open up more opportunity, since our experience in the last couple of months.
I also want to chip in. I think what Roger and also Ricky just mentioned, they are very important. And there was limitation in our last offer, which we've got the online component, and then we've got the face-to-face component, and they complement to one another. But after the last 5-6 months, we know we need to do more. Now, in recent days, there is something called high-flex model. What high-flex model refers to is actually each course would have a full online version, but also there's face-to-face version. And then these two just blend together, just run parallel. So for students who cannot join the class physically, they join the class via online, and they are not going to lose anything. And then the vice versa. So I don't know whether it's possible in the future. Of course, we know that for high-flex, actually it's more demanding for instructors because they need to do more. But for students, I think that would be more beneficial because that can be more flexible. They can jump from online and then next week to face-to-face, or next week because of other issues they cannot attend, then go back to online. So I just want to throw this out to the panel and just to see whether it can be achieve in the future. Of course, we need a little bit more resources and also a little more teacher training. But I guess that could solve some of the problem that we talk about, like self-paced, like timetabling, and also traveling.
Thank you very much. And our next question is actually a very popular question on the live chat. We've received it twice or three times from different people. Would you consider expanding this program to postgraduate students? So not only alumni want to travel between campuses, also our postgraduate students would love to take this opportunity as well. So what do our panel think of this possibility?
Of course, why not? But I would think for postgraduate it's a little bit more challenging. There are two main reasons. When you say postgraduate, I don't know whether it refers to research degree or taught course. If it's a research degree, I think that's quite possible because of the time is much longer in terms of duration. And also the resource, I think, because majority of them is funded under the UGC, so that would be easier. But if it's for taught course, for instance, master's degree, then the time is much shorter, a year and a half, and the number of courses fewer. And also because majority of them self-financed, so in a way there could be some financial implication. Okay, so yes, in principle, but the logistics we may need to work a lot more, to look into a lot more.
Yeah, let me also chip in a little bit. I think for postgraduate RPG in particular, I think we actually have this opportunity, available. In fact, students can actually take RPG course in another university and get recognized, although it wasn't, very structured in a way. It's not like as this program, but there are mechanisms that allows that. Okay, and in fact, I know some students have taken that. Okay, and it makes a lot of sense because it's very specialized and we have experts in various universities. Okay, and then taking courses, learning from the expert in another university makes a lot of sense. RPG. Now for TPG, as Chapman said, it's much more challenging. Okay, I think though I don't think that is impossible. It will have to be better structured because in TPG typically there's not a lot of elective. It's very structured. These are the courses you need to take, so there's not too many choices. So in order to actually make it happen, I think it has to be something that a joint university TPG program. Okay, collectively we offer a joint TPG program to students, pulling in training from different universities, and that's something that perhaps can be explored.
Thank you very much, Roger and Chewin. And as I'm looking at our live comments, not only postgraduate students are interested in this model, we also received questions from vocational training sector. So I think it's Mo Wai is asking how to reimagine vocational training or education. I think online learning cannot have effect on experiment-based learning like welding. So maybe our panelists can briefly address this question. And
one thing that we can think of, and we have not really tackled this or talk about this, is about something like the concept of OER. That means it's open education resource. Now, for vocational training, I guess a lot of it is like the practical hands-on and also the lab-based work, et cetera, et cetera. So that might not be easily accommodated. But at least one thing that I think can be done, particularly now we've got MOOC, we've got a lot more OER around the world. So we can think of actually having universities in Hong Kong to share the teaching materials, to share the online delivery, and then combine with their local practicum, whatever that mentioned, then I guess it is one way of making this simpler to start. And then once started, then we can think of other ways to make it even better.
Yeah, I guess also, similar to vocational training, whereas University of Science and Technology, we also have a lot of lab. I think that online learning should not replace everything. Okay, it's not like all or nothing. Like Chadwin was mentioned earlier about this intertwining the face-to-face and also with online. I think the same thing. There's something that can be done better, online, and then there's something that should be done, in person. Okay, in face-to-face sessions. But I think the concept of leveraging different universities to share resources, whether it's the lab setup and all that, whether it's the teaching staff, teaching faculty expertise and all that, I think is probably one of the very important success of this project. Like Ricky said, it is possible. I would say even more than that is actually a very good successful example of how well they can work together.
Thank you very much. And the next question I'm going to pick up from the live comment. I would like to direct it to Roger specifically, because I know you have some experience with this at HKUST. So Evelyn Sunny is asking, is there any potentiality of international collaboration with overseas students, with overseas universities? I'm asking Roger because I know Hong Kong UST also offers a virtual global exchange program. Perhaps you can share your experience in that with us.
Okay, sure. Let me explain a little bit about this Global Virtual Exchange Alliance that we are a member of. Basically, it's a group of universities from around the world, Europe, US, Canada, Australia, Asia also, okay, to offer self-paced online MOOC-like kind of like credit-bearing courses. Particularly, they will also have plotted exams, okay, so that there's a credit-bearing, okay, to facilitate what we call the virtual exchange opportunities. At HKUST, we have about 45 to 50% of the students, by the end they graduate, they would have an exchange experience for about one term in some overseas university. But if you look at, that's good. But then on the other hand, that also means that there's about 50 to 55% of the students who do not have that opportunity. So we would want to expand these opportunities to them, despite the fact that they cannot have really an on-campus experience in an overseas university, but at least they have an in-class experience, okay, a class experience with other students in the classroom. Okay, so we join these alliances, and then there are courses made available, okay, and then we have a student actually taking these courses on the self-paced mode, and we found that it's actually very good. Student expanded the horizon and everything, and although there's also things that we need to improve on that. In particularly, unlike this program, all the courses are transferable as common core or general education. Over there, okay, we only can transfer the course typically for credit, but not necessarily counting in any particular requirement. And that makes it a little bit more difficult when students already have a full load of courses they have to take. But nevertheless, that actually really opened up the opportunity, for this kind of collaboration.
Thank you very much, Roger, and it's really great to learn about this experience. So we also have some interesting comments from the audience asking whether there will be cooking class. There are other possible ways of our different disciplines. I think these are very interesting ideas that perhaps in the future we can consider expanding, really reimagining higher education. So I think the last question I would like to direct to Chadwin. This is related to student participation. It's Minnie again asking the impact of COVID-19 on this program, whether we have more students joining or fewer students joining the local exchange this year. I'm directing this to Chadwin because from the program, POLYU students actually are the most active in participating in the program and going to different universities. So looking at the impact now and also reflecting on the student participation, perhaps you can talk about why this program is so relevant to students at POLYU and why is it relevant to this post-COVID-19 teaching?
Thank you very much. There are two questions I want to address here. The first is about why is attractive to POLYU students. I would think the first reason is because POLYU actually, we focus on professional education. So what it means is students, they do not have a lot of opportunities exposing to those who are outside of the profession. So that includes mixing with students from other universities and mixing from individuals who are not professionals. So I guess this is one reason why they would want to break away from that professional boundary and then get opportunity to work with other students and work with other people. So that's the first reason. The second, I think, is POLYU. Actually, we were technological institution, and so things like general education and others actually is very new to us. So in a way, the students may want to look for a wider choice of general education courses. So that also contribute to more students participating in it. And of course, because it's the first round, so we put in a lot of effort to promote it to students, to make sure that their registration process actually smooth, etc. I think that's for the first question. For the second question about this COVID-19, actually, when we look at our numbers, those who participate in the first year actually a lot more than those participate in the second year. And we just thought, and the second year actually is the COVID-19 year. So in a way, I suppose is because actually it's not just for COVID-19. Before that, actually, we also had incidents in our university. So we put in online teaching and online learning, full online. So a lot of students just engage in it. And then our policy changed from time to time because of the change in the situation. So in a way that students might not want to take the risks of taking additional content to their own professional education program. So I guess that could be the reason why we expect that there should be more students engaging in these projects, but at the end, for this year, the COVID-19 year, that actually fewer students participate. So I guess it is more the contingent situation and then new policies of the university which stop them from taking additional courses.
Thank you very much, Chetwin, and thank you very much for all of our panelists. I see that there are actually more questions coming up on the live chat, but unfortunately we have a very tight schedule, and we hope all of the sharings have really give a lot of insights to our audience. And if you're interested in learning more about the project, you can also visit our symposium website to get full details. So thank you so much again for your sharing, and thank you for all the great effort in making this project possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope the sharing from the panel has given your new ideas about the possibilities of higher education and vocational education, or even other sectors. So in particular, during this global pandemic time. And one of the unique features, as we mentioned in the panel discussion, is that all of the courses being taught in this program is designed in blended format. So teachers have been using online and face-to-face elements to engage students in different learning contexts. So in the next session, we're very excited to hear from one of these wonderful teachers. We're happy to have Dr. Wincy Chen, the instructor of the most popular course in this project, The Science of Crime Investigation. In this course, Wincy and her teaching team use multimedia, AI, VR and AR technology, and game elements to engage students in their learning and facilitate collaboration. So before you hear from Wincy, let's get a quick sneak peek into her classroom.
This is about an e-learning case using a course in forensic science to teach scientific inquiry in a large undergraduate class. In the coursework, students are expected to team up to solve a criminal case. They will examine the scene and injuries, interview witnesses, and collect exhibits for scientific tests in order to identify the suspect and help the court to make a decision. Traditional delivery of the coursework requires a great deal of coaching to help students develop the skills necessary to conduct competent scientific investigations. Our team has built a mobile game that features AR to take students to a three-dimensional scene. At the scene, students can look for items that seem suspicious and examine injuries on the victim. They're also able to establish real conversations with witnesses and forensic investigators through AI chatbots. Students can access the game app anytime, anywhere, and receive instant feedback. They can also keep track of their learning through progress bars and achievement badges within the game interface. With the aid of data visualization in the back end, we aim to help students develop a stronger sense of ownership in their learning and make teaching scientific inquiry so much easier.
And now let's welcome Dr. Wincy Chen. Hello, Wincy. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Andrea. Good morning.
What a fantastic course, Wincy. This video has shown so many different ways of elements and technologies that you have designed in the course to engage students. So I would really like to learn from you about how these elements work together to help students learn the subject.
Sure. Thank you, Andrea. So the Science of Crime Investigation is a course designed to engage students in the knowledge and methodology relating to forensic evidence and crime scene investigation. So Andrea introduced us by saying that the course is the most popular courses in the program, but we wouldn't want to take the credit because I personally think that it's the pop culture that attracts the students to the course. Traditionally, the course includes a series of lectures, small group tutorials, a group project, all conducted face-to-face. The course takes in students from all disciplines and levels of study. So the large class size and diverse learning needs together means bringing extra challenge to teaching science and the scientific methods. As part of the Responsive4U project, we flipped the course by using learning videos to explain core scientific concepts and knowledge questions and discussion forums to test students' understanding of such concepts. Face-to-face class time became more interactive and hands-on. We also developed a mobile game that you've seen in the video. The goal of this digital initiative was to facilitate the teaching and learning of scientific inquiry through a seamless game flow that simulates real-life criminal investigation procedures. However, all of that you've seen in the video didn't happen in one go. We made development progressively and responsively to students' needs. First, because we saw that students were not familiar with the procedures of scientific inquiry, and then we got tired from students asking the same questions over and over again. We developed chatbots to represent the witnesses and experts at the scene. The chatbot database was built on previously submitted student work and powered by artificial intelligence. The chatbots help to force students to do the analysis step by step, from making good observations, asking the right questions, giving priority to evidence in their reasoning, and coming to conclusions. They can ask the chatbots 1,000 questions without exhausting the bots. Then we had students who kept asking to see photos of the real-life scene, thinking that photos would tell it all. But the reality is, photos were taken from selected parts of the scene only. In response to that, we transformed written records, sketches, and the photos into a comprehensive three-dimensional crime scene. We also designed a game map that facilitates collaboration. The game map uses augmented reality to take students to the 3D scene. While students can interact with the scene on their own most of the time, the design requires them to get together when they want to activate a new area of the scene. So that enhances collaboration, and it's like moving on to the next level in normal gaming. After that, we thought it would be nice if students could interact with the witnesses and the crime scene in a single user interface. Therefore, we designed an app to handle it. With a 3D model in front of them, students can better visualize the physical environment of the scene, items in the scene, what's on the victim and around the victims, and possible witnesses such as where the neighbors live, so that they can formulate their search strategies more effectively. They can also see what they have collected in a logbook and how far they are in the investigation in a progress bar. So summarizing all of the above, we flipped the course using 3 totally different strategies that complement each other. First, teaching core scientific concepts online through learning videos, knowledge questions, and discussion forums. Second, using AI chatbots that allows students to interact and get instant feedback anytime and anywhere. And third, augmented reality that takes students to the crime scene. Other teachers can decide what's suitable for their teaching needs depending on the nature of the course and resources available.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wincy. It's really a sophisticated design. And in fact, it's just like the CSI TV show where you have all of the details pieced together for students. And I completely understand why students would be so eager to join this course. So I know that you have also collected some students' feedback and their responses to these games and also these learning elements. Could you share with us some of that as well?
Yes. So we tested the chatbot system with 2 groups of students who had previously completed the course. Some preliminary findings suggest that, on average, students ask 30 times more questions talking to chatbots than participating in class discussions. Using the course grading criteria, we found a good 60% of these questions were meaningful questions that demonstrate deep learning. So that's very promising, and we hope to be able to further develop the chatbot system. So now let us all hear from the students after they experience the game app in the classroom.
A really amazing and new way to learn, to be able to find weapons or look at the whole entire body and look through autopsy results in real life instead of just reading on a sheet of paper has been so educational.
It's quite fun, the game. It's really interactive and it's much more interesting than the normal classrooms. But then in this classroom, you can try using your phone, using AR, VR. You can at least try to put your hands dirty, get your hands dirty.
This is really great to see students learning from the game, and it's really wonderful to hear their voices, and watching them playing the game really brings us into your classroom. But I know that last year you also, this year, your course is also impacted by COVID-19, which means there was no face-to-face class scheduled. So I wonder, how did you adapt the teaching to fit this fully online teaching arrangement?
That's right. So the online learning materials that we developed in the first year of the Responsive4U project had actually made the unexpected transition to fully online this semester a lot smoother. We ran live sessions according to the scheduled class timetable because we want to help students to maintain their study routine. In the live sessions, we would explain the theories more thoroughly using real-life case examples and give out small problems to test students' understanding of those theories. So basically, we did what we would usually do in the physical classroom. We also offered extra Zoom meeting slots every other week for groups to sign up freely. These meetings were led by students, so they can ask questions and collect feedback on the interim findings of the group project. To my surprise, the extra sections were extremely popular among students. This tells us that the students were still very much engaged with their learning during this challenging time and staying home. And if we could show a little bit more patience and support to the students could feel it and would appreciate it and put in extra effort to their work. So at the end of the semester, we also offered an option for individual paper submission instead of group presentation to groups who felt the collaboration through online means were not effective. And this gave students a better sense of control over the coursework. With students joining us from other UGC institutions, the students generally did not find challenges to the learning process or collaboration, other than the usual complaints on scheduling group meetings and the presence of freeloaders in some cases. So in terms of course administration, we reserved 1 to 2 seats in each group specifically for visiting students. We did this to allow students more class time options that would suit their timetable and travel needs, and maximize the chances that HKU students would work with visiting students. We did not treat any students differently otherwise. As we can see from the student comments, they do appreciate the diversity, and we are pleased to see this true blending among students and in their learning. This semester, we had a couple of visiting students scoring in the A range, which is an outstanding achievement in a course that has a long-standing reputation for not giving out A's. This is another piece of evidence that suggests the Responsive for You program does not only do no harm, but is an added value to the student learning experience. So amid COVID and other unforeseeable circumstances, I believe local exchange can be an alternative to overseas exchange. The flipped blended learning design with both online and small group face-to-face components will work perfectly under the new class size arrangement that still restricts large lectures to be conducted online, while we will be allowed to run small group activities on campus. So lastly, I would like to thank Professor Ricky Kwok and the team for giving us the opportunity to participate in this meaningful initiative and to share our experiences today. And thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you, Wincy. Thank you very much. And I particularly like the fact that you highlighted this blending of students in your class, that students are grouped with different institutions and they are learning with peers from different backgrounds. And in fact, that's not the only course doing this. We know that many of the other courses in the project are also using same effort to engage our students. And as you were introducing and sharing this interesting course, we also have live comments coming up from the live chat. We have one comment, very interesting. You can construct the scene, but you cannot smell the scene. So I suppose this could be the next step for the game development, whether we can add more senses to the game. And I'd also like to bring up another question, which is very relevant to what you were sharing. From Vici is asking whether the setting suits big size classes. Will be so interesting if hundreds of students can join and compete through teams or groups. Do you think this is feasible? And what might be the challenges if we do this?
So our class is usually about 120 to 130 students, so it's large enough for us to experience and experiment doing everything in a large classroom setting. So we usually put students in groups of 5. So if we have 130 students, there would be 26 small groups. So they move around the tables and chairs in a classroom and then work together. So all the groups will be assigned the same task within the classroom, while outside of the classroom, they will be working on different tasks. And the biggest challenge in the big classroom is I'll say there are a number of challenges in running that in the big classroom. First, it was the physical space, because we had not, the first time we ran it, we had not expected that we would require extra physical space on top of a classroom that would normally fit that enrollment size. So students had to cram in the classroom, but fortunately, our students are very flexible and adaptive, so they basically work out their way of doing it. And we would have to have a number of teaching assistants or colleagues to be around the classroom to help, because when people in the groups ask questions, we want to be able to attend to their questions as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wincy. And in fact, we also have more questions about the details of the game on the chatbot design, and also whether you will consider making this game publicly available for everyone outside of the university. But unfortunately, due to the time, we won't be able to respond to these questions one by one. So I would like to give a reminder to all of our audience that all of these courses are featured on our Responsive4U eSymposium website. We have designed a poster for each of the course, so you can ask more questions there, and Wincy and the other course teachers will be able to respond to them in a written format. So thank you so much again, Wincy, for joining us and sharing with us this wonderful course design. And thank you for bringing this excellent experience to our students.
Thanks, Andrea, again, and thanks everyone for the nice comments and all the questions.
Thank you, Wincy. And as I mentioned, just like Wincy, all of the 11 courses have their unique designs and their course highlights. So please be sure to check them out on the Responsive4U eSymposium website at responsive4u.org/e-symposium. And we have heard a great deal from the project team and the participants. So next, let's move our lens and look forward and beyond this project to reimagine higher education together. I'm very delighted to invite on stage my co-host, Professor Sri Srinivasan, Marshall R. Loeb Visiting Professor from Stony Brook School of Journalism, New York. He'll be moderating this next conversation with Professor Ian Holliday, Vice President and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Teaching and Learning at HKU. Professor Holliday's leadership was instrumental to the success of this project and many other e-learning initiatives at HKU. So please welcome Professor Srinivasan and Professor Holliday.
Hello, Ian. How are you?
Great to see you again. How are you doing?
Great to see you. Great to see you. You're in your office. I'm underdressed because it's 11 p.m. here in New York, and I'm on Fire Island. We left New York City for the first time in 102 days. We escaped, and we came here. This is a small island just off of Long Island, just off of New York City. And so please forgive me that I'm not dressed the way I should be in talking to such a senior and august colleague.
You look terrific.
So you've been seeing this program. Congratulations to everybody involved. Obviously, this was path-breaking and pioneering in so many ways. Let's hear your reactions first to the program, and then let's talk specifically about how we're reimagining education just going forward.
Well, thanks very much, Sri. I mean, I'd like to say thank you very much to my colleague, Professor Ricky Kwok, who led this entire program from start to finish, and also our collaborators, some of whom you've met this morning, Roger and Chet Win from UST and POLYU, and also Isabella, who Ricky mentioned earlier from Chinese U, who wasn't able to be with us today, but she's also been a key member of the project team. So they've really done all of the leadership work on the project. And of course, they brought on board some great colleagues. We met with Wincy just a minute ago, explaining to us how she's actually delivered kind of at the chalk face and in the classroom, how she's delivered her course. But there are many other colleagues who've been involved as well. So thanks a lot to all of them. They're the ones who've made it happen.
And tell us about how you're seeing this kind of as some of the good lessons from this and the opportunities, because so many different folks are involved, so many institutions, and really trying something new and exciting.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, you and I were talking about kind of higher education in the wake of COVID-19. And obviously, that's something that many of us are thinking about in higher education. That's a key theme right now as we look ahead. But the great thing about this project is that 3 years ago, it started to actually experiment with some of the issues that we're now suddenly faced with as a result of the virus. So it started experimenting with blending learning. And we've all been doing that. We've all had to push far more stuff online in the last few months than we ever expected to be doing right now. But Responsive4U was doing that 3 years ago. We've also been looking at new ways to connect students. So we have no exchange taking place, no physical academic exchange taking place at the moment, and we won't have any in the first semester of next year. So until the end of this calendar year, our students will not be able to do what they've been doing quite regularly for, say, the last 20 or 30 years, which is going to another campus and spending a semester or a year there. But this project has shown how you can actually bring students together virtually. I mean, it's great if they can attend the physical component of a blended learning classroom together. But even if they can't, this project has shown that there are many other ways for them to collaborate through a joint effort that gives them an opportunity to cross-register and to join forces with other students and to expand the range of options available to them. I guess that's one of the things we've always liked about exchange. It's not just that you go to another place, but you also tap into the expertise of another campus. So we're a comprehensive university, but we don't teach much, say, anthropology. Other universities around the world do. And by opening up partnerships with them, we can also open up the opportunity for our students to gain far more exposure to those areas in which we don't have so much expertise.
And how do you see this kind of, when I was telling somebody about this program, they thought this was some kind of cutting edge thing that came out of COVID because of some of the other programs that we've been talking about. But I said to them, no, this has already existed. How do you explain such a creative program in the dark ages of 3 years ago?
Well, I think credit obviously to the team. Ricky had already established the necessary relationships. I don't think you could launch this type of collaboration just by sending emails or making phone calls out of the blue. This program has a kind of prehistory whereby the collaboration that is evident in this program already existed in a nascent form. And Ricky had established many of those contacts already. And that was a key part of it. I think also credit to UGC. So you'll be speaking in just a minute to Professor James Tang, who is the Secretary General of UGC. UGC oversees the 8 publicly funded universities in Hong Kong. And UGC 3 years ago, or probably 4 years ago, when they decided on the funding for this program, was prepared to take a gamble, if you like, on something which probably didn't look quite so necessary or relevant then, but has proved to be very prescient and very important now. And so, we're all grateful to UGC for actually spotting that this was one to invest in for the future.
Thank you. And let's move on to talk about kind of the higher state of higher education. We have a question here from Minnie who says, glad to see you again. How should universities prepare for next year's teaching and learning with COVID-19? Let's talk specifically about HKU and then we can go out from there.
I mean, we're a face-to-face institution. Much as I'm keen for students to have as much choice as possible, and Chetwin earlier on was mentioning a high-flex model, whereby students can choose and move between face-to-face and online. That, I think, is important. But I think it's also important not to lose touch with students and not to lose touch with the wider experience. If there's one thing I think we've done reasonably well in the last few months, it's delivering content. But what's fallen away has been everything else that sits around that class and course-based experience, which is just the experience of being a member of a community at a university and sharing through peer learning, through running into faculty members, through the haphazard and fortunate connections that are made just by being on a campus and having that exposure to a community of scholars and learners. And so we're bringing students back as much as we possibly can. Basically up to 90 or 100 student classes, we will do face-to-face. We will do all of our small group face-to-face, plus our lectures up to about 90 or 100. And everything above that, we will do online. And that means that our students actually will have quite a substantial face-to-face component. Of course, we're aware of all of the measures that need to be put in place in terms of temperature checking and hand sanitization, social distancing within classrooms. All of that will be in place. And even more difficult, some of the other things that can't be controlled quite so readily, like catering on campus. We will have protocols for that as well. But we're keen to get back to the face-to-face as much as we possibly can.
And I know that's the case around the world. People are really looking at this. And how did you decide that this was the right time to switch to that? This is something about, I think, East Asia having started been on the COVID journey a little earlier than everyone else, you've learned lessons along the way, right?
Yeah. I mean, we happen to be we're in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong still only has 1,100 cases and 4 deaths from COVID, which is just amazing given where COVID is, where Hong Kong is.
May I just interrupt to say that is stunning,
Yeah.
right? Like in America,
Yeah.
we have tens of thousands of cases that are found, and they're continuing to increase instead of decreasing in many parts of America. And to hear those low numbers, we in America were thinking that this is, East Asia is the problem, but we discovered we are the problem here.
Yes, and I mean, what it's driven by in Hong Kong is just a very, very disciplined and aware population. I mean, in Hong Kong, people follow the science. The science is front page news in newspapers, and people and on broadcast news and on social media, and people follow it and they respond in ways that are recommended. And so we're in the situation where we can actually rely on a population that has proven over the last 6 months that it's capable of navigating COVID quite successfully. And that means that we're confident that provided we've got the appropriate protocols on campus, and of course we need to do our part as well. We can't just make it a free-for-all. But so long as we are conscious of social distancing in controlled spaces and social flow, campus flow in not controlled spaces, i.e. in the open campus, so long as we do our part, we're confident that we can work with what has been a very successful Hong Kong society navigating COVID. I mean, a challenge that we face is, and that Hong Kong itself faces, is reintegrating everybody from the outside into Hong Kong. Hong Kong's a global city, it's highly international. And at the moment we exist in this bubble where we're locked off from the world. You need to go through testing and 14 days quarantine if you want to come to Hong Kong. And that means we're almost COVID free here in Hong Kong, but we can't live like that forever. And nor can we as Hong Kong U live like that forever. In 30,000 students, we have 11,000 students who are not from Hong Kong. Probably 3,000 of those 11,000 are in Hong Kong at the moment, but 8,000 are not. We need to bring them back to Hong Kong. We need to quarantine them. We need to find a way to reintegrate them into the campus community without disturbing any of the success that Hong Kong has experienced with COVID-19.
Would you say then that one of the reasons why America has failed, clearly, is because of the lack of faith in science at the very top of the leadership, and so many people who just believe kind of the fake news and incorrect and misinformation, disinformation, all of that's happening. And as someone who appreciates science, watching this must be quite disheartening to you.
It's hard to comment on another society, but broadly, yes, from everything I've read about America, that would seem to be the case. I think what the other strand in America and in some other societies is the belief that taking due precaution, in particular wearing a face mask when you're in public and in a crowded place, is somehow a constraint on human freedom. Whereas I think on the whole, we would see that as a liberation. I mean, the fact that we've never closed our restaurants at all during COVID-19. We have cinemas open now. We have large gatherings taking place in Hong Kong, and we shop and we basically live as normal. It's because people wear face masks, and they do that almost, uniformly. It's striking to be in a busy place and find somebody who's not wearing a face mask. And there's no kind of regulations that absolutely insist that you must wear face masks when you're walking on a busy street, but people do. And as I said, that enables us to expand our freedom and to do more in a time of pandemic than we'd be able to do if we weren't prepared to wear face masks.
And that's so, I'm jealous to hear that, because we just went out to our first restaurant meal in 3 months and we were all so nervous. But I think, as you said, the wearing of the masks is key. And we've learned so much from your colleagues on the discussion series we've had about the value of doing things that people are doing in Asia, in America as well. We only have just a couple of minutes left with We have several comments and questions coming in. We have a question here from Mary Yang. We're just going to put up on the screen. As an HKU graduate, I'm happy to learn about this project. With the impact of COVID-19, are there alternative ways for students to go on exchange in the next academic year?
So for as many students as possible, if they had a semester one exchange place lined up, we've moved that into semester 2. Most of our exchange partners are very happy to work with us on that. So we'll be kind of overloading on academic exchange, physical academic exchange in semester 2. But we're also keen on the virtual. I mean, Roger at UST is the expert in Hong Kong on that, and he was talking about it earlier, that they're members of a virtual exchange alliance, which is fantastic. We are trying to do that on a course basis as much as possible at Hong Kong U, whereby we're encouraging colleagues to, through Zoom and other technologies, to connect classroom to classroom so that students can have some of the exchange activity in semester 1 that they were hoping for, but that won't be possible because physical movement is not something that we're endorsing for the rest of this calendar year. I'd like to say one more thing that hasn't been mentioned, the point that hasn't been mentioned from the Responsive for You project, which is, I think another opportunity it offers is an outward-looking opportunity to partners in the region in less developed contexts. There was a question earlier on from Myothu Shane. That name has to be from Myanmar. And when you look at Southeast Asia, there are very developed poles of activity in Singapore and other parts of Southeast Asia, but there are also less developed poles. And one of the great things about a Responsive for You type of initiative is enabling leading universities in a region like Asia to look to their counterparts in less developed countries and open up courses there. We could support that learning. One way to do it would just be to say, here's some content that can be used for free in your university. Please use it and support it however you like. Another way would be to say, here's some content, and we will help you to support that. We will actually provide you with some tutorial input as well. And a third way would be to say, as well as the tutorial input, we will put you classroom to classroom in contact with our students, at least for a couple of sessions, so that our students can actually learn from each other. Because whilst we give our students a lot of exposure, they're not necessarily exposed to some of the challenges that are faced by students in developing and global South contexts. And they can learn a lot from that because on the whole, they don't get that exposure. When they go on exchange, they go to a campus that's not so different from Hong Kong U. It's in another part of the world, but it's another elite global university. And often when they do their internships, they'll do that with leading global corporations, not uniformly. Some students do go to developing contexts. But I think as a way of opening up the conversation here at Hong Kong U and at our partner universities in Hong Kong, it would be great to use Responsive for You as a platform to reach out to, say, some Belt and Road countries in our neighborhood.
We have a question here from Minnie who asks about the MOOCs, the great MOOCs that HKU has developed. Can they be credited and offered as sharing courses and exchange programs like this?
Sure, they can. Absolutely, they can. I mean, they come in different shapes and sizes. Some are only about 4 or 6 sessions long, which is a little short. We have a minimum of 120 study hours for a regular course at Hong Kong U. So if the MOOC content only runs to, say, 4 or 6 or 8 hours, getting up to 120 takes a lot of work. So we need to think about how we can package the MOOCs so that they are equivalent to a normal course at Hong Kong U and require the same kind of engagement by students. But that's a minor task, and we can very readily do that. And it's another great way. It actually links to the point I just made about reaching out to other universities in other parts of Asia. We can also do that through our MOOCs and demonstrate ways in which that learning can be supported at the local level.
Thank you. One of the things that we did on our conversation was we went into in-depth some of the ideas around the future of education, and I recommend that folks go back into the fightcovid19.hku.hk website and watch the interview that we had together, and also my conversation with Professor KYUN, which was 3 months ago, about masks and the value of it. We even put on masks and showed people how to use it. And it feels to me like 3 months wasted. And there you have yours for Americans and so many other countries in the world, including Brazil, as we saw, hit a record high new number of cases. 50,000 people have died in Brazil. And this feels like there was knowledge, there is knowledge, there's wisdom, insights among our colleagues like yours around Hong Kong U and everywhere else, and we have not capitalized it. I think the world isn't pulling together the way it should, and that's one of the things we have suffered from, and it's going to be, as the history of this is written, we're going to regret it. I can't let you go without asking about the paintings behind you, Professor.
They're Myanmar paintings. So I mentioned that there was a question half an hour ago from a Myanmar caller, but yes, I work on Myanmar and I collect contemporary Myanmar paintings. So that's a couple of them.
That's great. I got to spend a little time in Myanmar as a child myself, and what an inspiring country, has had its share of pain for decades, and we hope scholars like you can continue to enlighten us about what's happening there. So with that, we will send this back to Andrea. Thank you, Professor. Great to see you again. Can't wait to host you in New York for dinner or drinks at one of your favorite New York restaurants.
Love to see you one day, Sri. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Srinivasa, and thank you, Professor Holliday, for sharing these visionary insights into the future and all of the possibilities by coming out of this project. And for our final session, I'm very honored to invite my other co-host and producer of today's live event, Professor Ying Chen, Honorary Professor of Technology Enriched Learning Initiative at Hong Kong U. She'll be introducing our guest of honor today and moderate this conversation with Professor James Tang, Secretary General of the University Grants Committee. So please welcome Professor Chen and Professor Tang.
Hello, Professor Tang. Great to see you here.
Right, great to see you.
Yes, you were my dean from not so long ago. Actually, it's quite a while back, from years back. So great to see you.
Great to join this symposium.
Yes, absolutely. I've enjoyed it and then learned a lot. Now, the University Grants Committee funded the project that we discussed this morning. That was 3 years ago. Amazing. That reflects on your vision and that of the UGC. We'd like to thank you for your leadership, and we'll continue to count on your support and leadership. I understand that you have a message to share with us on the project and the theme of this session, Reimagining Higher Education. Over to you. We're all here.
Yeah, thank you, Ying, and I'm truly delighted today to join this very fruitful conversation upon the completion of the Responsive for You project. And thank you, Andrea, for hosting this symposium. First, I would like to offer my warmest congratulations to everyone involved in the project from the 4 universities for this remarkable achievement, and in particular, our project leader, Professor Ricky Kwok, and the 6 co-leaders, Professor Isabella Poon and Dr. Wong Wing Hong from CUHK, Professor Chudwin Chan from POLYU, Professor Chang Chi Chan and Professor Roger Chang from HKUST, and also Professor Gray Kocher Lindgren from HKU. It is really impressive to have over 2,000 students enrolled in the shared courses under this project. The course packages which are shareable among participating institutions and a wider group of stakeholders are of truly high quality. So I'm pleased to learn the very positive feedback from those who have taken part in this worthwhile initiative. You mentioned that the UGC funded this project a couple of years back. Actually, obviously, when we decided to fund the project, we had absolutely no idea how the spread of a new virus in the form of COVID-19 would have disrupted the higher education sector to such an extent. As one observer put it, for most people throughout the world, it does seem like the world as we knew it has hit the pause button now. Many are also predicting that the world will be forever different and a new normal with mask wearing, social distancing, restrictive travel measures, and more frequent online meetings has emerged and likely to become part of everyday life. Professor Ian Holliday, I think, just earlier mentioned the kind of changes the universities will have to introduce to manage all these new developments. Pandemics are, by their nature, always disruptive to human society. We know during the Black Death in the second half of the 14th century, medieval universities were devastated. Many students and lecturers, for example, in Oxford and Cambridge, fled when the disease spread to the two university towns. But the students and their teachers soon found ways of managing the situation with escape plans. And even before the pandemic was over, 4 new colleges were established in Cambridge and student enrollment increased in Oxford. So in many ways, COVID-19 is more all-encompassing in its disruptive impact than previous pandemics, and the implications for those of us in higher education is likely to be far-reaching. I was reading a commentary at in the South China Morning Post recently, who wrote that the COVID-19 pandemic has rocked the foundations of universities as a critical sector of our economies and created a crisis for millions of millennials who see their future livelihoods in jeopardy. Now, the Responsive University project addresses a number of key issues on the challenge of quality learning experiences for our higher education sector. Given the technological changes and the rapidly evolving social and economic environment that took place even before COVID-19 hit us. So universities all suffered during previous pandemics, but they have re-emerged as institutions that help our understanding of the world around us with science and knowledge. They have also become institutions that serve wider segments of society and at the forefront in the promotion of technological innovation, economic growth, better understanding of human societies, and also in nurturing leadership for communities around the world. Now, how universities will emerge from the current pandemic is going to be really crucial for the future of human societies. With the COVID-19, there is unprecedented interest in e-learning among educational institutions worldwide. The need for sharing quality contents as we turn to e-learning is global, from webinars to online streaming of musicals and plays. The world has really embraced the idea of sharing without physical or institutional boundaries almost overnight. I believe blended learning will shape post-COVID-19 university education, and the paradigm shift is irreversible. So I'm truly excited this morning when I heard so many bright minds shared their visions on how education can become more responsive in the digital era. The discussion was fruitful and enlightening for me. And the symposium has inspired all of us to rethink the delivery of education in the post-COVID era. I'm sure the successful conclusion of the project will be a very important milestone for more extensive and deeper collaboration among universities in Hong Kong for new thinking on learning, and the impact of this project will be lasting for many, many more years to come. As you know, the UGC has always been enthusiastic when it comes to teaching excellence. We certainly are happy to support this meaningful collaborative endeavor under our funding scheme for teaching and learning. The funding scheme started in the 2012-15 triennium to provide extra resources to universities. It has been successful in bringing pedagogical changes and innovations. Another round of funding scheme in the 2016-19 triennium with about 178.9 million was further allocated to the universities. I'm glad to see that the seeds planted a couple of years ago have started to bear fruits. Even with all these achievements, we know you want to do more, and that is why we provided 50% more funding for the UGC Teaching Development and Language Enhancement Grant in the 2019-22 triennium, bringing the grant amount to 781.2 million. We hope that our message for supporting teaching and learning is clear, and that our support can make a difference to the higher education landscape here in Hong Kong. Obviously, we would like to see each other face-to-face, and physical interaction is important in university education. But I'm sure the trend for blended learning and flipped classrooms, which started well before the disruption brought about by COVID-19, will become more widely adopted now that both teachers and students are more skilled at interacting online and are more appreciative of the use and limitations of such platforms. The UGC is happy to continue our support for innovative ways in the promotion of an ecosystem for excellence in teaching and learning for the sector. I'm really truly pleased to see such a successful completion of the Responsiveness project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Tang. Thank you for your encouragement, endorsement, and support. And also thank you for the good news about funding. We can assure you funding from UGC will be put to good use in a way that's innovative and inspiring and helpful to our students at all your institutions. So may I thank you for everything that you've done for us, and thank you to the UGC for its vision and leadership. And hope to see you around, and we'll be in touch definitely. I think you will hear more about the funding. That's great news. Thank you.
Right. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Professor Chen, and thank you very much, Professor Tang, for such encouraging closing remarks to end up this very exciting discussion this morning. Now, at this point, I would also like to say a big thank you to all of our audience from all around the world. Thank you for your active participation and engagement with us. Responsive4U has been an exciting project in experimenting a new way of teaching and learning in higher education. And this e-symposium is also an experiment of online conferencing. So we hope you have found ideas and inspirations from this project and the sharing of our guests and speakers. So thank you to our distinguished guests and speakers. Thank you, our wonderful production team. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day and a wonderful week ahead. Take care and goodbye.